Hello, everyone. I see that already 9 of you are online. Good to see you. Welcome. Benvenuti, as we would say in Italy. I am Giulia, and I'll be your virtual Italian guide for this webinar. Some of you might have signed up through Facebook, through Traverse Journey. Many of you might be coming through the various meetups. My friend Laura is moderating. So however you have arrived, welcome, and I hope you will really benefit from this session about Italy. So I welcome you to enter any comments you may have or question. It's definitely better if you enter them while on topic, so I can see your question and try to attend them. Also, I will try to leave about 10 minutes towards the end of the session for any questions that you may have. Hi, welcome. I see that now we are at 10 people, 11 people. What else? If you are missing this recording, this live event, and you will be hearing it later, there's going to be a recording available. And any questions you may have, you can direct them to Laura. I will type it for you. Laura at traversejourneys.com. And she can forward me your questions and I will send to you a reply. And also, if you have RSVP'd to the Eventbrite event, that's the best way for us to keep in touch and follow up. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. Again, my name is Giulia Sbernini. I am from northern Italy. I'm going to show you on the map my town. I'm from Parma. Parma is this place here that I am highlighting in the region that's called Emilia-Romagna. I was born and raised there, went to school in Bologna, which is a town close by. I was in Italy until I was 21, and then I started traveling and moved to Ireland. I loved Ireland and lived in Ireland for a couple of years, and then I moved to the US in 2005, and I've been living pretty consistently here ever since. I have lived in San Francisco. I lived even in Hawaii for a year, and now I am settled in Nevada City, which is in the beautiful Sierra Nevada mountains. So definitely traveling is a big part of my life, and I love to support those that also share the love for traveling, and particularly those that would love to travel to Italy, because even if I live abroad, I really love my country and I go back often, and I'm proud of the place I'm from. So this is pretty much about myself. What I want to say is that even if I'm Italian and I have traveled extensively pretty much everywhere in Italy, my area of expertise really, it's more northern Italy. I show you here. So northern Italy, this area here, and central Italy. Then if you have questions about southern Italy. I might be able to tend to some of them or the islands, but really today I'm gonna be focusing on giving you some ideas about itineraries in northern Italy and central Italy. So let's see. For me, I would like to, start by saying, of course, it's great if you have an idea of what your priorities are when you'll be planning your trip to Italy. Like, do you want to see the major cities? Are you interested in the countryside? What type of experience in the countryside? Are you interested in a more active vacation to Italy? Italy, it's definitely incredible for the arts, for food, but we have plenty of option for a more active holiday. Like the Alps are incredible for skiing and hiking, and we have trails, pilgrimage routes that go along the Apennine Mountains, which is this range of mountain right here. I mean, you don't really see it as good on the map here, but I'll point it to you. So the Alps they go all around Italy. So many people, when they think about the Alps, they think about Switzerland, but really Italy gets all the arch of the Alps, and then the Apennine run down, all the way down. So there's plenty of opportunities for having also an active type of experience there. I personally suggest to consider your trip more focusing on region, picking like 2 or 3 region stops of the area that you are interested in, and then that might include also the city that you are interested in, and focus on that, because Italy is a very diverse country. Is one country, you can say that there are pretty much 21 countries within one country. So Italy has 21 regions. And each region, I would almost dare to say that each province has its own heritage with its own dialect, but let's just narrow it down, saying that each region, it's kind of a country on its own. Now, I'm pointed now, the red is my region, Emilia-Romagna. So I would recommend that you try to choose 2, 3 regions. It could be Tuscany, Emilia-Romagna, Liguria is this one, where Cinque Terre is this one, Tuscany is this one. The reason why I recommend this choice, it's because you're gonna have the opportunity to really sink in the culture and food that each region offers, more so than running around. But this, of course, is my suggestion, and then you see however works best for you. So I'm gonna, I'll be leaving the different suggestions for the different routes towards the end. Right now, I want to go over, cover topics that are more general. For instance, where to fly. So if you are planning your trip to be northern Italy or central Italy, there are really I would say 3 main airports to fly in, and I'm gonna write it right here. The first two are in Milan. One is Milan Linate. The other is Milan Malpensa. And then there's Bologna, which is a little more central. Now, of course, then you can also fly into Rome. I think it's more ideal to fly into Rome if you are planning your trip in the south of Italy rather. Or central of Italy, or if you're planning to go to Sicily, for instance. Milan, my favorite airport, the one that I recommend the most in Milan is Linate. So the first one I included. The reason for that is that it's really close to the city center. It's just about like 15 minutes from the city center, and it's really well serviced. Then the other one, Malpensa, instead is quite further away. It's 40 minutes away. It's also very well serviced, like there are buses that connect to the city center. It's just further away, so I would recommend it more if you are planning your trip in the northwestern part of Italy rather. And then I included Bologna because sometimes you find deals where Bologna can be a good option. So the recommendation would be you can put it in your search, and if you find a price that's competitive, I would suggest that you consider flying into Bologna. It's less likely that you will find a competitive price flying into Bologna just because it's a smaller airport, and there's just less airlines that go there. But I have had a couple of times that I found that option and I chose it. I also want to include that there's nowadays there is this company in Iceland that offers really cheap fares. So if you are more of a budget traveler and you don't mind a layover, I would definitely recommend flying into like booking a flight through WOW. This is the name of the company, WOW Air, I think it is. It flies through Reykjavik, and then from there you can get a flight into Italy. Like I just got my ticket, and it was one way was $300, and I am in California, so it's quite a long haul, but it was definitely worth it. So these are, I think about, the cost. On the lower end, I would say $700 return. Again, I fly from California, so my flight is more expensive rather than some of you that might be flying from the East Coast. So that price might be looking more like $600 for you rather. And on the higher end, I have definitely spent around $1,000. So when booking your flight, I would just recommend start to checking, like once set the dates that you would like to go, definitely helps to think about that a couple of months ahead, the list, and then start to look through internet. I usually go through kayak.com or Momondo, and those are great sites for booking. I would say starts about 2 months before, and once in a while, like every other week, I usually check out if there's any changes in prices. If I notice a big change in the cost, that's when I jump in and I purchase the ticket. So this is mostly all I wanted to tell you about the ticket, the airline, I believe. Oh yeah, the one thing is don't underestimate jet lag. Whether you are on the West Coast or you're on the East Coast, there are 9 hours difference. Italy is 9 hours ahead, or there are 6 hour difference. So you are gonna feel it. So definitely either plan to arrive a day before your planned itinerary starts, so you can give yourself some time to rest, or plan for a really easy first day where you don't have to travel too much and you can prioritize resting, because it's definitely sneaks up on you, and I feel it every single time I go. Sometimes I feel it more than others, and it might also be that with time I got used to it, but it definitely it's a long trip. So I'm not seeing any. I'm seeing a question. I'm not seeing your notes. Where are they posted? Here. I'm gonna move them. Janice, I saw your note and I'm gonna try to move them. No, I'm gonna retype them. Sorry, you guys, a second. So I said Linate. Okay. So I'm having some difficulties in typing. Possibly Laura might be helping me with typing some of the information. I'm gonna keep going. So what time of year it's good to go to Italy? Well, it kind of depends on the activity, on what you'll be doing, really. There's, of course, a lower season and like a high season and then a mid season. The low season, of course, is during the winter time, and it goes pretty much from November until March. The mid season is early spring or late fall, so April, early May, and October. And the high season picks up starting from mid-May, end of May through June, part of July, August, and September. So, for instance, if you want to go to Italy just to experience the big cities, then you can really go anytime. Because if you just want to go and visit Venice, visit Milan, or Florence, Siena, all the major one, leaving behind say the countryside or the mountains, then you can easily go even in the low season, just because the big cities are supporting like tourism. The museums are open most of the time. You might be able to have more option in the places to stay. If you don't mind the cold, I would say that would be a good option. Visiting the bigger cities exclusively in the summertime might be harder, because they're gonna be crowded and they're gonna be hot. Most of them is gonna be hot, and in Italy it's humid hot, so it's sticky. It's not humid dry. I don't know if some of you like live on the East Coast, like in North or South Carolina, where I hear there's more humid heat. Like Italy is just like that. Like it's quite unpleasant. So also I want you to know, definitely mark it off your calendar. Take the month of August off your calendar. That's the worst month to go to Italy, because the locals get their free time, their time off in August, and so it's just extra crowded. Everything is booked, because the economy in Europe has been a bit struggling in the last years. Many Italians have opted for spending their holidays rather at home, like in Italy, rather than going abroad. So it makes it extra crowded. So the lower season, instead, if you are wanting to experience the countryside, say you want to go to Tuscany, or you want to go to Umbria, or you want to experience swimming in the Mediterranean, which is, by the way, something that I highly recommend, then of course the low season, the winter time, is completely out of your charts, and for that I would recommend like the mid-season and the summertime are good. July, I would consider only going to Italy in July if your route is more towards the northern itineraries. So if you're thinking to go, for instance, to visit the Dolomites, or if you want to visit the lakes in northern Italy, which we have so many lakes. Just to give you a quick idea, let's see, lakes, or I think that's pretty much it. A really great time for going to Italy is early spring, June, or September. Also, those are the times that it's quite crowded, but of course there's a reason for it. And again, this is pretty much if you're planning on visiting the countryside, or having more excursion that involve being outdoor. If you are planning the cities, then it's okay to consider the lower season, particularly if you don't want to be doing too many lines, etc. So let me see if there's more or no other questions. So keep the questions going. I will, here and there, I'll take a look. So far, I only saw Jenny's question, and I saw Anthony comment. So I see that now we are at 20 people. I want to say hi everyone. My name is Giulia. For those that logged in later on, I am your virtual Italian guide, and we have gone through where to fly into, the best time of year to go to Italy. If you have missed that part, you can access the recording, and you can always ask me through Laura, ask me questions later on. So the next topic I will cover is methods of transportation. So Italy has a wonderful railroad system. Like the train service really well the country far and wide. I'm gonna send Laura this link so she can send it to you. Trenitalia.it is the website for the national railways, and you can see the time schedule. There's like many different type of trains, from regional trains that don't require booking to what's called Intercity or Eurostar. Those are the fast trains. They require booking if you want to secure yourself a seat, and they are faster. I personally think if you're not in a hurry, regional trains are also called interregionals because they connect region to region. They are really good. So if you are, for instance, going back to that option, if you're choosing just to visit the major cities, then the train would be a great option because you don't have to bother about hiring a car. If you're, for instance, if you're thinking to go to Venice anyways, I would recommend that you just park, even if you had a rental car, that you parked it outside of Venice and go to Venice Center with the train, and for any other city. In Italy, of course, we drive around, but whenever you are within a city, we do tend to walk a lot. So you'll be walking around a lot through Venice, to Florence, through Milan. In Milan, there's metros that you can catch. In Florence, most likely you would be walking around, but there's buses if you want to go to certain areas and you can access them through the bus. The car really, so that's the side of the trains. When I recommend just doing a trip exclusively traveling by train. You could also do part train, part car, or only car. Car definitely is the better option if you want to get to more remote area of the beaten path, places that are more in the countryside. So for instance, if you want to visit the lakes, or if you want to visit the Dolomites, if you want to visit the countryside in Tuscany or in Umbria, or if you want to go more inland in Liguria, along the coast, then you do need a car. And, there's just the usual car rental places that you can hire. You can hire them at the airport directly, Hertz, Avis, Budget, all of those are good. I think there's also like a nice website, I believe is rentalcars.com, and I have noticed that they have slightly better deals than booking directly through those rental providers. So you might want to check those out. Again, rentalcars.com, I believe it is. So the one thing to say with the car is going to allow you more flexibility, spontaneity to stop wherever you want, stop at a vineyard, have a lovely lunch in a vineyard, or who knows what, like an olive orchard. I just saw a question. Can you use the Eurorail passes on the regional train, or is that completely separate? No, I believe you can use the Eurorail passes, Michelle. The Eurorail, I believe, has only like a certain duration. You purchase for a certain time. The great thing about the Eurorail is that for that time that you purchase it, you can open off many trains. In fact, I believe it would more likely cover regional train than exceptionally fast trains. For that, I don't have all the exact information, although I do have to say, if you're planning to travel just to Italy, I don't necessarily recommend purchasing a Eurorail pass. And for all of you who else might be wondering about what is the Eurorail is this ticket that allows you to travel by train throughout Europe. You pay a certain fee and you can catch as many trains as you like. That's wonderful if you're planning on visiting multiple places in Europe. for instance, if you want to go to France and if you want to go to Italy, and then you want to go, let's say, start like with Spain, France, and Italy, then a Euro pass is great. But if instead you are just planning to stay in Italy, I would not recommend purchasing a Euro pass. I think it might just be cheaper for you to buy the tickets just at the train station for Italy. So that's about the Eurorail. I hope I answered your question, Michelle. What else? I was talking about the cars. So car is a wonderful option, is more expensive. I like it as an option because, of course, it allows you to go to places that with the train it would be slightly harder to get to, or it would take much longer. And some places, anyways, you would not be able to get to without a car. It's going to be more expensive also because the price of gas, it's much higher in Europe. We don't buy gas by the gallon, but rather we purchase it by the liter. And I believe currently is about 1.5 euros per liter, meaning that it's going to go up to about 6 euros for the gallon. And so that, I don't know what's the current rate of euro to dollars, but it might come up to about $8 per gallon. So a lot more than what we're paying here. Also, in the US is great. We don't have to pay freeway. Instead, in Italy, there are tolls. And tolls are quite pricey, and they vary from, whatever length of freeway you cover. So I'm not able to provide you an exact amount of the tolls, but just to give you a rough idea, from Milan to Parma is about, I believe, 10 euros. And that's not very distant, or a big distance, is about hour and a half distance. So you have to budget in that, the car is going to be more expensive, is going to allow you more flexibility. Also, bear in mind, it's Italy. So some of the stories and the legends that you may have heard about some lunatic drivers, they are not all true, but we are a bit of fiery drivers. So the traffic has a certain speed. You can choose when you're on the freeway. There's no problem. You can choose your speed, but the rule is that you have to keep to the right, so that the faster traffic can keep going on the left side, can keep passing. It gets a little trickier in certain stretches of freeway. For instance, if you're going to Liguria, like if one of your destination is Cinque Terre, for instance, the roads there are a little more windy. There's tunnels, so something to keep in mind. Also in the highways, rather, like what we call like the state roads, those can be narrower, and so it just good that you either are okay with some time being honked at, and that you just take your time. Just beware that is a different country with different driving rules. For instance, one of the things that I did not know when I came to the US is that here at the traffic light, when it's red, you can still make your right turn. In Italy, you cannot do that. If you do that, you're gonna get a ticket. And I got so used to that, to just taking the right turn on the red here in the US, that once I got back home, I started doing it, and I got lucky because there was no police officer that stopped me. It just one day dawned on me. I was like, oh my God, like that's different rules. But for the majority, the rules are the same in the US. There are just some small variations. That one is one of the main ones. Like you have to, when is red, no matter where you're going, straight, right, left, you got to stop. And yeah, and then pretty much that's it. We drive on the same side of the road. And don't be afraid to honk when you are in Italy. It's kind of part of like a cultural experience, I think. So I think, let me know if you have questions about transportation. Now would be the good time to type it. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep going to the next topic, which is accommodation. Yeah, I don't see no question. So I'm gonna keep going. Accommodation. Well, there's so many places to choose from in Italy. There's great hotels, 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, super luxury. There are B&B, bed and breakfast, that are really great. There are some camping options. If you are more like a budget traveler, that would not be my first recommendation, because like the nice camping with like just more in the wild that, for instance, it's possible to have here in the US, it's very unlikely to be had in Italy. Italy is a small country with really many people, like a big population. We are about like from the last report I read, I think we were 65 millions in a territory that is not even as big as California is. So the campgrounds are kind of packed. There's RVs, so it's not as pleasant. So if you are more on a budget, I would rather recommend hostels, which there's many of them, or like affittacamere. Affittacamere are room rentals, like people that don't quite run a B&B or are not quite certified as B&B, but they rent their room in their houses. And nowadays, if you look through, for instance, bedandbreakfast.it, I think they are even allowed to like list room rentals, or they're even listed in, like, if you search for budget accommodation, like room rentals come up. And again, is written affittacamere, and I write it to Laura, affittacamere. So for instance, if you're choosing to go to Cinque Terre, and you are more like on a budget, then affittacamere would be a great option for about 40, 50 euros per night, maybe even less, maybe like 35. I doubt lesser than that, but for a reasonable amount, you can get just a room with the bathroom or a shared bathroom in the house. Like there's affittacamere in Florence for sure. Like in the main city, you see them. And if you are spontaneous and you don't want to do too much booking because you're traveling to Italy in not a really high season, then you can really afford to maybe book your first night when you arrive. And then I think you can comfortably just get to the place and look around and see what place draws you more. And usually by the houses, they put the sign affittacamere, and so you can just ring the bell or call them up. So that being said, the hotels, there's some really great hotels. Also, I really like also the bed and breakfast. They are an opportunity to get a little maybe closer to the locals. My favorite way to stay in Italy, particularly when you're choosing to travel through the countryside, is agriturismi. And I will write that too, agriturismi. Agriturismo is kind of like a farmhouse stay. I'm just got to I'm reading some of your questions right now. Khadija, sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. I will get to the euros question in a little bit. Yes, so agriturismo, I'm gonna go back to agriturismo. Agriturismo is farmhouse stays, and they're just like, there's this website, is agriturismo.it, and it's a great really way to have a relaxed experience in a farmhouse where local produce is made. Sometimes it's more like a animal farm, other is more like an olive orchard or a vineyard. You can have like cooking classes there. The food that's cooked in the agriturismo is really fresh and delightful and is very local and regional. So I highly recommend the agriturismo if you are opting for traveling by car and going to the countryside. Otherwise, again, the other option that I mentioned are great option for staying in the cities. Again, if you're going in the high season, it's better that you book ahead. I also want to mention quickly, if you're going in the high season and you are visiting cities and you're planning to go to Florence and visit, say, the Uffizi Gallery or the Accademia where the David is at, you must purchase your ticket in advance if you want to avoid a really long line. I can share more information later on. If you have questions about how to book those tickets, you can get in touch with me through Laura, and I'll point you in the right direction. So I think I've covered most of the topics. I wanted to say what to pack. There is one item that I recommend packing no matter what time of year you go to Italy, and is a raincoat. Light raincoat, of course, if it's summertime, just because Italy weather is a bit more unpredictable than the US or California, for instance. In California, once it's summertime and forget about any rain. It's not the same in Italy. We have occasionally some storms in the summertime. There are actually some thunderstorms. Last year, when we were doing our tour with Laura, which is something that I actually just remember, I forgot to mention. I'm Italian, yes, and I have been collaborating with Traverse Journey since last year, and I lead their tours to Italy. I create the itinerary, and I am the guide there together with Laura. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that towards the end of the broadcast. So last year when we were in Milan with Laura, it was early September, and we got into a huge hailstorm that didn't last very long, but it completely took us by surprise. So of course you can purchase umbrellas there, or if you're staying at your B&B, they will help you as much as possible. But it's nice to have a little raincoat with you, just in case. So now, because I've already been on for 40 minutes, I am gonna go into itineraries and what I recommend. So I'm gonna do some screen sharing now with you. So we can look at that together. So just try to focus on this part of Italy. I like this little map because it points you one by one the different regions. So as I was saying, my suggestion would be that you pick a region, like pick 2 or 3 regions and you stick with that. Like it's gonna give you really a wonderful opportunity for experiencing the food, the culture, the art, and there's no shortage of things to do. So let's say you wanted to start in Venice. I'm gonna kind of take a loop, like I'm gonna start from here, go around, and then go down. So let's say you want to start in Venice. I would recommend that you fly into Milan and then you make your way through to Venice, which is in this region that is Veneto. So now, on your way to Venice, here we are, Venice. There is this really wonderful lake that's called Lago di Garda. It's one of my favorite lakes in the north. In northern Italy, we have many lakes. This is one of my favorites. If you are like, say, on your way to Venice, you could stop in this village called Malcesine. Is slightly less touristy, so it's kind of a bit more of the beaten path than Riva del Garda. And when you're in Malcesine, one of the nice things to do, it could be, for instance, hop on there's like a lift that would take you up to Monte Baldo. You cannot quite see it here, Monte Baldo. And you can have a wonderful overlook of all the lake from there. And there's in Malcesine, there's plenty of B&Bs and place to stay and restaurants. And so after the little detour, you can make your way to Venice. I think stopping in Verona would be a great option. Verona, if you don't know, it's what's considered the city of Romeo and Juliet. It's popular, but still not super touristy. I think in Verona, the majority of people stops just to go to see the site of Romeo and Juliet. I would personally recommend to visit the Roman amphitheater. It's century old, and there's still concerts and play that take place regularly in the Arena. It's called Arena di Verona. Arena di Verona. Laura will write it for you. And so that would be a wonderful stop. You don't even spend the night. You could plan to spend one night in Malcesine, and then the next day on your way to Venice, you could stop in Verona. Now, in Venice, I would recommend park your car in what's called Mestre. There's going to be plenty of parking by the train station. I would leave your car there, and then you could catch the train straight into Venice. Venezia Santa Lucia is the name of the train station in Venice. And from there, in Venice anyway, you would have to leave your car parked as you enter the city, because everything is on water. You can go around with water taxis or with water buses. What I like about Venice, I would consider spending like at least 2 days. Would be probably even more ideal to think of spending 3 days in Venice, because it's not just beautiful to get lost in meandering through the city. This is the main square of San Marco. The castle is wonderful. This is the main canal with Ponte di Rialto. It's also wonderful to take a bus, visit Giudecca, these islands, and then take another water bus and visit Lido, where there's also a really nice long beach. And it's really great to visit the island of Murano and Burano. Those are the islands, and you can access to them with the water taxi again. Sorry, I'm taking a sip of water. Just a second. So you can easily spend, you see Ponte di Rialto, you can easily spend 3 days, I think, in Venice. If you have less time, at least 2. That would be my recommendation. Just about Venice, don't go during the carnival. I know that it might be enticing because of the masks. It's already a very touristy place. Even if it's very touristy, I personally love it. It's unique in all the world. So if it's something that you might be interested in, go for it. Just stay away during the carnival because that gets very crazy. And it might be almost impossible to find accommodations unless you book like a year ahead. Now, once you leave Venice, it would be a great route also to move up. Alongside here and here are the Dolomites. Those mountains are breathtaking. The old town, it's a city, but it's small, of Bolzano is really beautiful. Also going up here, you're starting to get to places that are more off the beaten path. There is tourism, but nothing like you would see in Venice or Florence or the main cities or in Tuscany. So if you want to have a different experience of Italy, this would be, or particularly those of you that are more active people, the Dolomite is a dream. They have a really rich culinary tradition, really rich culture, and I would recommend like visiting this area here. There's amazing valleys. Cavallese is a wonderful village to stay in, and also Moena is beautiful, Ortisei. They are all these small villages, very characteristic, and they are crowned by just these unbelievable peaks. It's great to go in the summer. Like, I would recommend going here in July, June. In the winter time, if you're a ski lover or if you like hiking, there's like, you can do snowshoeing here. Would be definitely a different when is the carnival in Venice? The carnival in Venice is in February. Laura answered you. And what are places to see in Cagliari, Sardinia, Italy, or places to eat? We will be there for about 8 hours. You are talking about Khadija, you're talking about Cagliari. Sorry, but Sardinia is not really one of my expertise. And if you are there really for only 8 hours, I'm sorry, I cannot help you with that. So I'm gonna go back to the route here. So those are some places also. If you are in the Dolomites, Merano is a wonderful place to visit. Or on the other side, like Amadello del Brenta, this national park is the other section of the Dolomites. And I would recommend visiting that part. Then moving along to the eastern part here, I would recommend, like now, like if you are flying into Milan, want to visit this part, this section of the lakes, I would, like Lake Como is a wonderful destination, although it's less off the beaten path, is more touristy. There are other lakes if you are interested in experience that part of Italy, like Lake Orta, this one, or Lago Maggiore even, have more of Italian tourism. Instead, Lago di Como, particularly Bellagio, I would recommend. Even if it's incredibly beautiful, I would say try to stay away from Bellagio. It's extremely touristy, and you can go to Lago Maggiore or Lake Horta, and those places are just as beautiful. They all have islands. In Lago Maggiore, Stresa is a bit like more the popular location to go, but there is another village called Baveno here that is just as beautiful and is a great place to go. Also in this area of Italy, you can afford to go in July. Just remember, stay away in August, but July would be fine because we are like more in higher areas. So this, after the lakes here, I would say you could choose to stay more in the mountains and visit the cute little region of Valle d'Aosta is this top one. So now we were looking at lakes in this area, the top left, and you could choose to visit Valle d'Aosta. One of the highlights of Valle d'Aosta is that the highest peak of Europe is in Valle d'Aosta and is called is the Mount Blanc. This little town, Courmayeur, is still on the Italian side. It's a wonderful alpine village. Again, if you're a lover of mountains, these are great place to go. Then from there, you can choose to go there, or instead you could, from the lakes, you could go down into Turin. Turin, it's Turin. What is nice about Turin, it's kind of like the more alternative center of Italy. Like there's a lot of nice, more contemporary culture going on. For a certain period of time, it was even the capital of Italy. So it has definitely some majestic architecture, and it's really great for culture. So if you're a culture lover, but you want to experience like what a more contemporary Italy culture is like, I would actually recommend Turin. They have wonderful markets and is really a vibrating town. I would say like something like similar in that sense of cultural vibrancy as a place like San Francisco could have. Now, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Milan. Milan is also worth visiting if you love culture. There's some really great museums in Milan. Leonardo da Vinci, Ultima Cena is showing there. And so also like is the fashion place, what else? There's an area where the canals run, Navigli in Milan, that I would recommend visiting. I see that there's a question that has come up. I'm gonna be answering just 1 second. Navigli in Milan, I would recommend. Pinacoteca di Brera would be a great place to visit. And now just to tend to your question, what would be good places to have guided tours in Italy? All right, well, I think if you want to have guided tours, if you are really want to know the history and the artistic background of the museum you're going to, I would say Venice would be worth hiring a tour guide. You can hire a tour guide for half the day, or you can hire the guide for the whole day. The guide can take you inside museum, can take you just outside. Like you can really, like there's an incredible variety of guides. There are guides that are just specific to say like the Colosseum, or just specific to the Vatican, or so on the web there's plenty of information about that. I would recommend in Florence. I would recommend a guide in Rome. In Pisa, I guess it depends. In Pisa, if you really want to know the history of the tower and the main complex around Piazza dei Miracoli, then I would say, yes, you could hire a guide for like 2 or 3 hours. In Naples, I mean, all the big cities in Italy, you can definitely hire a guide if you are interested in knowing the history and the details of the buildings. You can also, like inside museums, there are audio guides. So you can, for instance, in the Uffizi, you can choose to hire a guide, but you can also get like an audio set that is in English and is gonna explain to you piece by piece all the different pieces of art. And I think that runs maybe 10 euros per person. So main cities, yes, I would recommend a tour guide if you're interested in history. If you just are okay, like looking at the churches and the building on the outside, maybe you don't need a guide. If you're okay doing your own reading, all churches come with brochures. So there's Lara shared with you a link here of Viator about guided tours. That's a good resource, so you might want to check that out. So I am going up to the hour now, so I am gonna be focusing on keep going with the itinerary, just because there's some places that I really want you guys to know about. So I mentioned Milan. Now, from there, let's look here at Liguria. Liguria is this area, this region that is really well known for pesto and focaccia. Is one of my favorite regions. Is also one of the regions that I'm the most familiar with. During the trip we ran with Laura, we explore the eastern side of Liguria, where Cinque Terre are. Cinque Terre is right here. And we also visit Portofino, which is right here. Those places are definitely not off the beaten path. They used to be, but they're still breathtakingly beautiful, and they express really well what this region is about. The only recommendation would be, if you are really curious about visiting these places, I would recommend perhaps spending the night not at Cinque Terre, not in Portofino. There are some other really wonderful villages in that area that you can stay at. Santa Margherita Ligure is one, Sestri Levante is another one, and then from there you can access Cinque Terre by train. That I would definitely encourage you to just visit Cinque Terre by train. There's Cinque Terre Pass that you can purchase, and it runs for about it runs for 16 euros per day, and it covers all train transportation and access to trails, to hiking trails. Like Cinque Terre has an incredible variety of hiking trails that connect the villages. So if you feel like a bit more active, I definitely recommend doing that. Monte Rosso is my least favorite of the Cinque Terre, just because it is slightly bigger. My favorite ones of the Cinque Terre that I highly recommend are Rio Maggiore, this one that I'm highlighting, and then Corniglia and Vernazza. Then if you have more time, I would encourage you to, like, I mean, if you just want to spend your time visiting this section of Liguria, there's some really cute inland villages. Varese Ligure is one of them. And then the Point also here has some nice villages. Now, the western part of the Riviera that borders with France has its charm too. And you might have to just, like, it could be a wonderful end of your itinerary if you had gone up to the lakes, visit Milan, Turin, and then you could start, say, from like visiting this area. Finale Ligure is a really nice little town. Alassio, there's some incredible olive oil production. The food is incredible. And the little town of Ventimiglia, just at the border with France. Sorry, I got here. Ventimiglia here. This area is very special at the border with France. And this is about it for Liguria. If you were visiting the Cinque Terre, I would recommend keep going and through here, and then you can visit Pisa. Pisa is okay to spend just, really one day. It can get quite crowded, so but if there are sections of Pisa that are not as crowded, like if you were to visit like the section of the river that is called Lungarno, or there are some really nice like squares more in the older side of town, I would recommend that. The area around the Pisa Tower is really crowded, and it can get quite overwhelming. So Lungarno, Lara will write it for you. I'm gonna see if you guys have any more questions for me. No, I don't see any questions. Next, I would recommend visiting Lucca. It's slightly more off the beaten path. It's a wonderful town. I personally prefer it over Pisa. And it's really old, many churches. It's enwrapped within these really high walls, and it's really just a lovely Tuscan town. Next, from there, you can go into Florence. Florence is Florence. It's unique and is busy and touristy. There's nothing to do about it. That's what just this city is. So if you feel called to visit Florence, and anyways, I have pointed you to some places that are off the beaten path. Tuscany cannot quite be considered a place off the beaten path just because it's so beautiful everywhere you go pretty much that tourism has got there. Of course, there's some areas that are slightly less touristy, like a place like Lucca is slightly less touristy than Pisa. Florence is still touristy, but is incredible. So the places to see in Florence would be definitely the Accademia, Duomo, the main cathedral, just walking all around the city center. It's just incredible. The old bridge called Ponte Vecchio. I would suggest taking a lift up to Piazza Michelangelo, where you can see where you can have a wonderful overview of the city. This would be a great place to hire a guide. Next would be Siena. Siena is another one of my favorites. Between Florence and Siena, there is so much. This is like where the Chianti region is. So there's just so many vineyards. You can if you're driving, you can just like take any random roads, which are fine, and just like be in the midst of olive orchards and vineyards. It's a dream come true. You can stop at any vineyards, and they have wonderful food. Also, you can take a detour into Colle Valdelsa, visit San Gimignano, Volterra. All these small towns are incredibly beautiful. They are on hilltops, old medieval villages. Both San Gimignano and Volterra are quite touristy, so just be aware of that. Siena, it's a wonderful medieval town. You might have heard of it because of the Palio. Its Duomo is unique in the world. It's just incredible. It's probably one of the most beautiful, so very worth seeing. Not to mention the food in just all of Tuscany is just off the hook. Good thing that there's a lot of walking when you're in Italy because there's also a lot of eating. And so remember, the more you walk, the more you can eat. So at least that's for me. I usually like it's nice because I don't gain too much weight when I'm in Italy because there's more walking involved. Just you always walk in the city center, visiting places, and so then it's a good excuse for like awarding yourself with some really nice dinners or some really nice lunches. Then I do want to mention this area here, Montepulciano, Montalcino. This is where like Brunello di Montalcino wine is also called Val d'Orcia, is a wonderful region. Is kind of like the picturesque photos that you see of Italy with like the cypress trees and the rolling hills. It's right around this area. And then Perugia and Assisi are not that far off. Once you are that south, definitely if you make it all the way down, I would recommend go visiting Assisi. Perugia, it's I think not as visited, but is a wonderful city. And now we are in the region of Umbria, so we have been looking at Tuscany, and Umbria is the little one beside Tuscany. What else? There's some people that are really lovers of Gubbio just because it's not quite as touristy, although I do have to say I hear more and more people nowadays talking to me about Gubbio, so be aware, maybe in a couple of years it won't be so much anymore off the beaten path. So this is like my suggestions really about this area of Italy that I know well. I want to let you know, just going up on the other side, on the eastern side, stay away really from the eastern side of the Mediterranean here. This is not really nice. It's really crowded. The sea can be like not so clean. Ravenna is a wonderful town to visit if you, after visiting Venice, for instance, you decide to go south. You can visit here, like the lagoons around Chioggia are really nice. You can make your way and you can see like the Po Delta, which also is very nice. These areas are definitely less like more of the beaten path. Ravenna also is. It's like the capital of mosaics because the Byzantine Empire settled there for quite some times. But really stay away from this part. It's overly tourist and a bit obnoxious. Then last, I want to talk about my region, which is Emilia-Romagna. Emilia-Romagna is this here, central. So I was just talking to you about Ravenna, which sits over here. And what's nice about Emilia-Romagna is it's considered almost the capital of food. My hometown Parma got elected as the European capital of food. It holds the food authority because, as you might Imagine from the name Parma comes Parma ham, Parmesan, pasta is from Parma. We have a huge production of tomato paste from Parma. So it's a really culinary and culinary rich tradition. It also boasts some of the most beautiful castles between Piacenza, which is just north of Parma, Parma, all in the countryside, both in the north and the south of those provinces. There are beautiful castles. Bologna is a wonderful city, also great for food, but also it has the most archways in all of Italy. So yeah, I would, oops, I clicked on a castle. So I would recommend checking out Emilia Romagna if you are a food lover, if you love castles, and it's definitely off the beaten path. Tourism hasn't quite arrived in this region quite as strong. And it's really close to Cinque Terre, so you could visit this region and then go down to visit Liguria and Tuscany. So I hope my tips were helpful to you. I don't see questions, other incoming question. I wanted to include one last tip, not to get you concerned, but just keep an eye for your purse when you are in cities and when you're visiting big markets. It's just good to leave the valuables in the hotel and just keep light and be aware. It's just a good rule of thumb to be aware of your belonging. So now, before closing, I want to share with you what I was telling. We do an itinerary. We run our own itinerary in June. We have an 8-day trip. For those of you that might not want to travel alone and you are looking for more like a guided tour with a native guide, I'll be there guiding you every single step all the way and bringing you to some of my favorite places. So we have an 8-day tour that starts in Milan and goes down to that section of eastern Liguria, visiting Portofino, Cinque Terre. We go through Lucca and then into Florence and into Siena. We also offer like a 12-day trip where I highly recommend this extension, because I've included some of my favorite places in the countryside of Tuscany. I've selected some wonderful agriturismo stays, even like a hot spring location, which is in a really small medieval town. And then we end in my hometown, Parma, having the opportunity to taste some amazing food with friends of mine that grow some and cook some amazing food. Also, I wanted to say that for any of you that might be interested in our trip, we will be giving you a discount for participating to our Italy travel live today, and Laura is gonna be sending out to you a code for any of you that are SVP'd through Eventbrite. So I am about to, you can see here through Traverse Journey, our website, there's the Italy trip if you want to read more about it. June 10th to 17th or June 10th through 21st. There's all the details of what will be included and details about each day and the itinerary. So let me see if any of you have any questions. Now would be a really great time to, here I am back. Now would be a really great time to let me know if there's something about the trip we're organizing or something else about Italy that you would like me to answer live. I can do it right now for you. What is the food like? The food is amazing. I mean, I can't just say enough about the food in Italy. Like each region is just like, I could just write so much about each region has their own recipe, and the ingredients are very fresh. It really depends where you're going. Like if you're going to Emilia Romagna, in my region, I would say lasagna, prosciutto. I mean, really, this could be just a topic, a one live topic on its own. So what I can say is you can truly be excited if you're going to Italy, because the food won't disappoint you at all. In fact, I would recommend that you leave some space in your luggage, because you can take home with you some cheese. So there's really, there's a lot to look forward to. So passport, should we carry our passport with you at all times? Yeah, just like Laura is replying to you, it's better to carry a copy with you, but the original, I would leave your passport in the hotel just to be safe. Yeah, so food is great, gelato, the wine is incredible. Definitely make sure that if you go to Italy, you try the aperitif experience. Aperitivo is what Italians do before dinner, because we go to dinner much later than in the US. So we start to eat around 8:30, but we usually gather, particularly in the weekends, we gather with friends around like 6:37, and we go out for a glass of wine, and each drink you get, any drink you get, is served with tapas. Some places really make a wonderful job offering those, like there's a rich varieties. Other places offer less, but it's still like it's a wonderful experience to be had. So definitely check out aperitivo, and any bar offers aperitivo. You just pretty much have to walk in any bar at around 7 p.m. and just look around what the locals are doing, and you'll know what to do as well. So let me know if I can help you further. You can get in touch with me through Laura. And thanks for taking the time to listen about this Italy travel talk. And I wish you all happy travels and happy travels to Italy. And maybe we'll get to see some of you hopefully in June. Okay, take care. Ciao.